My name is Capucine Korenberg, and I'm a scientist here at the British Museum. My current area of research is the production of Japanese woodblock prints. The museum's collection of Japanese woodblock prints is among the largest in the world, with over 10,000 prints. They include works by master artists such as Hiroshige and Hokusai, and depict scenes of Japanese society and cultures from Okinawa to Hokkaido. Woodblock prints were mass-produced in the Edo period. If a design was popular, thousands and thousands of impressions were printed, and over time, differences in color scheme and printing effects were introduced. Over the past 7 years, I've been consulting and investigating our collection with specific focus to research the differences between early and late printings of popular designs. In 2018, I was doing research on Hokusai's Red Fuji and the Great Wave, and I had some specific technical questions about printmaking. I struggled to find answers to these in books and published literature, but my online research led me to discover the print studio of Dave Bull in Tokyo. Fast forward to 2020, when the British Museum acquired a set of 103 drawings by Hokusai. These drawings are the original illustration for a book that, for some reason, never got published. It's an encyclopedic piece titled The Great Picture Book of Everything. The acquisition was big news in the art world because surviving Hokusai drawings are extremely rare. Around this time, I was delighted when Dave contacted me with the idea to create a series of woodblock prints from these original Hokusai drawings. This collaborative project was a unique opportunity for us to gain a better understanding of the role of the woodblock cutter in the production of Japanese prints. Traditionally, the artist's ink drawing is the first step in the creation of a Japanese print. It is then the task of the woodblock cutter to carve the design, separating the different elements of the drawing into the woodblocks that will be combined by the printer to create the final image. Each brushstroke of the drawing has to be translated into incisions in the woodblock to create the wooden templates. This is a task that not only requires great skill and dexterity, but it also needs a certain level of interpretation from the woodblock cutter. The resulting print often looks slightly different from the ink drawing and can differ from one cover to the next, depending on their own personal skill and style. Today, the majority of craftsmen making Japanese woodblock prints use traditional ukiyo-e print as a starting point and then produce facsimile copies. The original drawings for the prints are no longer around as these were destroyed during the original woodblock cutting process. Craftsmen are therefore copying lines that have already been carved by previous woodblock cutters in the Edo period. There's no interpretation for them to do because it has already been done by the original carver. This, however, is not the case with our drawings for the Great Picture Book of Everything. And this is a rare opportunity for Woodblock Print Studio to create woodblocks from original Hokusai sketches. In 2023, I had the opportunity to travel to Tokyo and visit Dave and his colleagues working on our Hokusai Reborn prints. We had a fascinating discussion.
Capucine, it's wonderful to have you here. We've been having these email things going back and forth now for, I don't even know how many years, 4 years, 5 years?
Yes.
We started off, I think, by talking about the Great Wave. When I was making the Great Wave, I had some ideas about such an idea, and you had some different ideas. So,
and we've agreed to disagree.
So it's okay that all went by. But now here we are working on the same project together.
Yeah.
This is great. It's always been in the back of my mind that one day that somewhere I could talk to you guys about some of those wonderful drawings that you've preserved, and maybe they could make into a woodblock print. But it's always been in the back of my mind. We're just busy. I saw the news reports about this and thought, maybe now here we are, something that we could do on a month-by-month basis. And I tossed you a line thinking, are those guys ever going to allow me access to this, to make pictures from these?
And I was so excited when I got this email. I was like, couldn't wait to tell my boss about it. It's like, oh, what an opportunity we have to learn really how to make a print from a drawing.
Me, I work from photographs, high-resolution photographs on my desk. And what's missing for me is the practical experience, how things are done. But you have...
Well, yes and no. I mean, come on, really. No, really. We make prints now with what is basically the traditional structure. The design goes to the carver, goes to the printer. But of course, we're talking about 150 years have passed by. A lot of the prints we make these days are reproductions of prints that existed before. And what that means is they've already actually been carved once. When I did my Great Wave, I didn't have Hokusai sketches because those were destroyed in the original process. So I made my wave copying a previous Carvers version. But this project we're doing now is totally, absolutely different. I have to work from a drawing. So here we are. I made replicas of what you guys have got over there.
So this is Gampi paper?
This is Gampi paper. So, and it would be maybe the same kind of paper that the original is probably made on in your museum. Not being able to touch it, we can't tell. But it's the same kind of paper that would have been used to make those drawings. So I wanted myself to get a touch and a feel for them. So I made these replicas based on the images you sent me. The main thing that I had to figure out myself was, okay, is this ready to actually be pasted on wood and carved as it is? Because we've got documentation from the past. You guys have got a bunch of them in the Hillier collection in your own museum there that show very rough sketches, what are clearly transitionary sketches, and then what are sort of almost clearly beautifully laid out things ready to be pasted on the block. We talked about this in an email, and I wanted to resist on this, not because I think the research is faulty, but because I looked at these lines and thought, oh my God, this is not really ready for prime time. My God, the carver, where does he put his knife in?
Yeah, it's just lines are really fuzzy.
Yeah. And there's two aspects. Is maybe back in the day, those carvers were so good at this, they could take that fuzzy little drawing and say, Hokusai, I know this guy, I know what to want. Carve a knife. Or maybe it was going to go one more step and somebody was going to carefully finish off this, carefully draw that nose. This could be anybody, any skilled copyist sort of at this level. And then it goes for block carving. So this is still sort of an open question.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably...
Okay. For us then, it's all very well having an open question, but we have to make these damn things.
Yes.
So what we've chosen to do, we've decided ourselves not to look at these as block copy. Because I don't have the skill of Egawa Tomokichi, the top carver that Hokusai wanted to do all his work. I don't have his skill. So we decided to trace these ourselves carefully first. And that gives us, that's it. There we go.
Yeah, and maybe we can show
carve it down. Yeah, we've
the
got
difference.
There we have the image you have. And here we have my version now after tracing is finished. And I got to tell you, every step of the way here, I'm thinking somebody is watching me. Someone's watching over my shoulder. And this someone is Hokusai. Who am I to sit here and take a pen and fix his lines? But it's an essential part of the job.
So were there sometimes where you were like, oh, I'm not so sure what...
Not sometimes. Every single dot and line. And of course, now wait a minute, there's this thing here. I've been doing this for 40 years, and the first project I ever did at a professional printmaker was carving calligraphy, that poet series that I did. And the original was not clear enough to carve. So I had to trace all this. And at the beginning, I didn't have a clue. So I do now have a lot of practice at doing this and figuring out how the line ends, how it starts, where the brush goes in. Even as a carver, we have fude no omote, fude no ura. Both sides of the brush lines are different for us. We understand. So even though I can't myself pick up a brush and give you beautiful calligraphy, I can certainly carve beautiful calligraphy. And there's the difference, the one and the two. But let me show you a couple of details. Look at this. This is now drawing with a brush. Now, you know how it works. The guy dips his brush in, it's full of ink, and he starts drawing, and it's thick and rich and black. And then as he draws, ink leaves the brush bit by bit by bit. And you can see this. It gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And then look what happens here. It's black again. So he's dipped his brush in the ink again. Now that's the way that drawings, if you're doing a sumi painting, that's what it looks like. That's not what woodblock prints look like. So Dave comes along here. I can trace this one, trace this one, trace. What do I do here? So what I've got to do is I've got to make it up and pretend that the brush was full of ink so that we get a steady line of scales on this dragon. So I've sort of already got a taste of this. I've had some experience at taking brush strokes and turning them into carved print. But the downside is I myself can't do all this. We have a team of people here now. I'm going to be carving some of these. One of our apprentices is going to be carving some of these. And we've roped in my friend Motoharu Asuka to do some of these. So there's a good news, bad news aspect to this. We have 3 carvers, 1 designer. Now, should that make a difference? The finished 12 prints in the set, they should all have Hokusai's taste, right? Well, they will have Hokusai's taste, but the bad news for you is that they're all going to have the taste also of the individual people who carved each one.
I don't think it's a bad news. I mean, because this is what happened in the old days.
Yes, it is.
And I've seen that in Hokusai's book illustration.
It was really, really enlightening for me when you sent that set of images from the Fugakuhyake.
The
famous
100
book.
views of Mont
I
Fuji.
looked at the images and I thought, look what she's seen. And I was green with envy. To explain for the other people watching this what's going on here, the idea that how much of the finished book is the designer's lines per se and how much is added by the carver. You know, and we've got this one book here that you found where the left-hand page and the right-hand page, because they are on different wood blocks, that's the way the books were put together. We've got one drawing, which would have been created as one drawing, then cut in half and given to that carver for that page and given to that carver for that page. That's the way books were made. So parts of the image that go across, we can see one drawing, carver A and carver B. When I saw this that you sent me, I thought, this is such a perfect example, and it sort of proves my point how much of the content of these books is created by the carvers, because there we have it, Mr. A carver and Mr. B carver, and it is totally dramatically different, and we know that they were taken from the exact same sketch. You know, there's another aspect to this that I myself feel quite strongly. We've talked so far, Anna, we've talked about 3 of the people that are involved in this, you know, the designer, and then the people drawing the thing, then we talked about the cutter, the carver, and then, of course, this thing goes to the printer. We haven't looked at that much, but it is printing. But really, actually, there's a much more important person involved here, you know, the 4th man in this Ukiyo-e quartet, and that's the publisher.
Yeah, it's the big boss.
Yeah, and he's the one who's sort of making the decisions here all the way. He's who to hire, what level to tell him to do the work, and all this thing. And when I get to certain parts of this, I'm not really acting on my own thought as a printer. I'm thinking, what does the publisher want me to do here? And what I'm getting at is this. If you, let's take this for an example. These clouds here.
Yes.
This is it's cloudy. It's a brush.
Very
Now we know on a woodblock
cloudy,
print, you've got to be on or off. It's like digital. You're black or you're white. So when I carved this, I carved it with a sort of fuzzy edge on this, but there's no way we can print the cloud in that cloudiness form. So I did a set of test proofs here, no, not really proofs, but test printing. I can print that cloud in a fuzzier form, or I can print it in a smoother form.
Yes.
And this is not the printer's
So how
call.
do you make this different?
Well, it's just adding more water, adding less water, putting more pressure in. No, this is just part of the printer's toolkit. It's a normal part. But it's not his decision to make, it's the publisher's decision. What do we want this thing to look like? You know, maybe in some really highly expensive projects, the artist may have been called back at some point when they're doing test prints. Not on a book page like this, but on some wonderful big project. Let's call the artist back in and see what he thinks about this. But for book pages like this, it's the publisher's call. What are you going to do? The printer would say, what do you want, boss?
For me, it's so interesting because I didn't know this. You could do that on purpose. That you could. I just thought it was just a.
Well, it's funny you mention that because this cloudy model stuff for us, it's actually normally a mistake. We try and print as smoothly as we can, and if we have got maybe not enough paste or too much water or something, it gets a bit mottled. So for us, it's a mistake.
Right.
Look at this. There's the background here. There's a background printed really quite smoothly black, and then you've got another example. Whoops. Now, is the publisher calling for this? No, I think this is just simply somebody doing careless work. You know, the blocks were passed on and passed on and passed on.
Yeah.
So Dave looked at these 2 things. He did 3 or 4 tests here, and I decided to go with pretty much a smooth background on the clouds. The decisions never stop. At every stage of carving and at every stage of printing, you're always faced with decisions on what to do, and that's where the publisher, his taste and his control come in. A woodblock print workshop run by a publisher with a good vision of what should be done is a good, healthy workshop.
Well, it's been really amazing, for us to do this project with you, Dave, to keep Hokusai's art alive and inspiring other people.
And remember, there's a benefit now. We're sending these prints out to over 300 people each month. So right now, 300 people are sitting there waiting by their mailbox, trying to see what we have come up with, we and Hokusai have come up with.
And we're one of them at the British Museum, because we also get
a copy. So that's there.
Great.
300 people are literally excited about this project, waiting to see how we do this. So I can't say thank you enough for the cooperation, for letting us do this. It's turning out to be so much fun.
It's the same for me. The same for me.
Maybe when this set of 12 is over, we can talk about doing the rest of the 103. I don't know.
I'm open to it.
I'm already 71. Let's see how this is going to roll. I don't know. Anyway, thanks again.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, chances are you really love Japanese Edo period woodblock prints. And you're in luck, because last week's video was also about Japanese Edo period woodblock prints. So if you've ever dreamed of going on a fantasy road trip through the landscape of Edo period Japan using nothing but woodblock prints, and accompanied by the dulcet tones of curator Alfred Haft, then the video on your screen right now is exactly what you need. Don't forget to call shotgun.